The new Black Salt Audio plugin has the most non-BS, down-to-earth name you can give to a plugin. It's called Drumbus, and it's a plugin to use on your drum bus to do the things you want to do on a drum bus. The interface is also very down-to-earth, something what you can expect from Black Salt Audio. But BSA dares to go a little cheeky. When you switch from standard to slammed, the VU meter will then show a crack. So daring. I did notice something in the GUI, and that's a color difference between what seems the graphics of the knobs and the background. I don't know if you can see it like this on YouTube, but I did, and I find it a bit sloppy to be honest. And there's a bug on Windows 11 with VST3. Every time I open the plugin, the GUI is bigger than I had it before closing. This can get hilariously big if you're not careful. The BSA Drumbus feels a bit like a back to basics type of plugin where you get simplified controls that do one thing. For instance, you get only two compression ratios, named Standard and Slammed. Standard has a ratio of around 2:1, where Slammed uses a ratio which is like a limiter. It's a bit above 10:1 as far as I can judge. There's no way to fine-tune the ratio. You do get a compression dial, and this one works like a threshold where by turning it up you lower the threshold. In other words, the compression will already start to hit at lower levels when you turn the dial up, and vice versa. That could give you already enough flexibility to get the right compression. But if those two ratios aren't enough, which is very much possible, you can always decide to go with parallel compression. And for that, the plugin has a mix dial. And I think this is quite an important control on the entire plugin. There's a high-pass sidechain filter and it does exactly what you want from it. If you turn it up, it reduces pumping caused by the low end. Before we continue, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that like button. This video is sponsored by DistroKid, the best choice for musicians looking to get your music onto streaming platforms like Apple Music and Spotify. It's fast, easy to use and affordable. Plus, with DistroKid you'll keep 100% of the royalties you earn and get unlimited uploads with every plan. Get 7% off of your first year with the link in the description of this video and find out why so many artists are using DistroKid to distribute their music. Now, one of the things I expect on a drum bus processor is saturation. And the heat dial does exactly that. By turning it up, you drive the whole bus into saturation. It increases loudness and makes the sound fuller. The tone and salt dials are, as far as I can judge, both EQ curves only. Tone is a sort of tilt EQ where the mid frequencies don't change, it pivots around 500 Hz. so it focuses on low and high end foremost. Salt is another specialty EQ which adds more of a complicated smiley curve to add low end beef and brightness. For testing, I quickly recreated this curve in FabFilter Pro Q3. Check this. And let's do a phase cancellation test as well. It's almost null. Any difference you hear is because I didn't completely match the curves. In my opinion, salt and tone could have been combined into one dial. There's quite some overlap in how they function. BSA Drumbus does have an attack dial, but this is not something that changes the attack time. It is a transient shaper. It makes the attack louder, and that's handy when you compress a lot. And here is where I miss a big feature in this plugin. The reason why I would expect a limiter is that drums usually are the main cause of spikes in a mix, and that is where you want to apply limiting. If this plugin would have a limiter engaged at all times, you can use the attack control to drive into that limiting and still keep those spikes under control. Let me show you what I mean. Here I have the free Loudmax limiter, which is a true gem. I have set it to do no limiting when the drum bus is off. Now, when I turn on the BSA plugin, dialing compression and attack, I'll drive into this limiting without getting louder spikes. The saturation heat dial already takes care of this to an extent, but the attack sounds like it's placed after the saturation. That makes that you still want to use a limiter. There's one thing which I found rather remarkable about this drum bus processor. Like this, in this raw and unedited drum groove, you hear that the snare drum is sometimes slightly ahead of the kick. It's like a flam and it sounds sloppy. When I enable drum bus with these settings, the timing and overall sound seem to tighten up a lot and it sounds more focused. The first hit of this groove still slams, but the rest is becoming much more acceptable and I would need to edit less after using this bus compressor. And that is pretty neat. Drum bus is a very capable drum bus processor. I really do like the sound, but I question the choice of which exact controls you get. Tone and salt could have been combined into one and having a fixed limiter would be an improvement. But in the end, it's about the sound, and that is excellent. Try it out for yourself to see if it fits in your audio toolshed.